Well, today I finally brought this sucker here with the help from my dad, because this thing weighs a ton. A lot of people have been asking how to make something like that. If I could give them a video that maybe has some measurements that they can kind of relate to. And that's what this is going to be. Again, this was kind of built with the idea that everything would be adjustable. And that's exactly what I kind of came up with in the end here. But for me, that was the best option. For some of you, something fixed might be the, just as good. I guess the basic construction, if you want to look at it this way, you have to, more or less, you have to make yourself a base that you can anchor a seat to. And something that's going to hold the wheel. That's really the simplest way to look at it. Now, with mine, I looked at a lot of different designs that were online. I found some specific ones that I liked. I found a lot that I didn't like, even a little bit. So, ultimately what I had to decide was how far from the seat to the wheel location that I was going to be working with, how much room I was going to have. Because I was very indecisive with it, that's why I ended up with such an adjustable measurement. Really, if you went from the back of the seat to the plate, I've got almost 28 inches to play with. And some people may want more, some people may want less. So, getting yourself a seat that has adjustable rails, that's helpful. That kind of gives you an advantage, because you can move the seat forward and back. Having a place where you can lock the wheel on and adjust that table is even better. So the shape is whatever you choose. This is kind of a convenient shape. The reasoning behind that is when you sit down and you go to swing your knees in, you've actually got room to bring your foot through this space. That's the only reason that it was designed like that. I'll slide the seat back here so we can see. Pedal mount is going to be unique to your pedals. My pedals literally pressure fit inside the wedge there, and that leaves them facing upward. It's actually very comfortable compared to having them flat on the ground. On the very top here, I put a shelf. The shelf is intended for the keyboard, the mouse, the controller, for the PlayStation, whatever you're using that you need nearby. This is a good place to lay it. The screen, use whatever you've got, whatever you want to use. It's a 32-inch that I used, and it works just fine for me. It's not too big, it's not too small. So how I made this, if you watched the actual build video of this thing, you'll know how I actually made this sucker slide. It's really not very complicated at all. There's a couple of bolts that go through the top of this piece of MDF, and they've got those 4 spikes on it that lock into the wood. It's actually a nut. So then I ran that bolt all the way down. On the other end of that bolt, I put just a knob that's adjustable by hand. And in the base piece that this is anchored into, I cut a slot. So it actually slides on this base piece, which is fixed. I cut notches in the base piece to accommodate the clamp for the wheel in the 2 locations that it clamps. And then of course the shape of the upper shelf matches the shape of the wheel itself. But everything is really just a matter of what you're looking for at the end of it all. I finished this base, so the base is constructed of 2x6s around the perimeter. I put 2x4 reinforcements across to keep it feeling solid. 3/4 inch plywood on the top. What I did here on the sides to meet up with this edge is I just added 3/4 inch plywood to the outside up until where this the housing in the front end was going to end up attaching to the base. It's not very complicated at all. The TV mount I built it out of Unistrut. Did a little bit of welding just to link these pieces together. You could bolt it together. It's just a preference. It's whatever you decide. And I've got the Unistrut cover that fits over top of this to close it off. It makes everything look clean. That's literally just screwed to the base. And that is what the TV mount itself is. A couple of holes through the back of the strut in the same position as where the mounts on the TV are. The shifter bracket, very simple again. Now I removed it this time just to get it here because it was a little too wide to fit through a doorway otherwise. So the shifter sits on this base plate here. This arm actually is screwed to the base. It's really nothing special. Again, the shape of everything was just a design. The angles are not really important. It's all about how you want to, you know, make your own racing simulator and have everything line up for you. So this is the underside of the simulator. I just stood it up to kind of show everybody what's going on. Like I said, the perimeter was built out of 2x6s, and that's all I started with, is a rectangle. So the MDF you see on the outside edge, we're not going to count that. So 22.5 is the width of this whole thing. The length of it from back to front, I chose 5 feet. It doesn't have to be that big, it doesn't have to be that wide. Purely your preference. What you can't see underneath the carpet is I added 3/4 inch plywood. Again, the only reason was so my seam, when it transitioned from carpet to MDF, so it was a relatively smooth seam. The only difference in height is the actual height of the carpet. It's not that complicated. I added some reinforcements in the plywood base, only intended to give me extra meat to mount the pedal bracket that I built. The seat is an actual automotive seat. I ordered it online. It has sliders that would work the same as what your car would have. They have L brackets in this case, so I anchored them to a piece of 2x4. That 2x4 got screwed in from the plywood base in the front and in the front here and in the back up there. The side panels are decorative, just MDF. Beneath the seat I hid the subwoofer that I've got for this system. So the vibrations kind of come from underneath you. It feels like you're sitting in the car. That's where the speaker wire goes. Of course I ran speaker wire for the surround sound. It's very simple. Let's lay this thing down and get some more measurements. So the height, in my opinion, when I was trying to figure this out, to the base of where my wheel sits, I made the table 21.5 inches high. My spacing between the inside edges of my front console here is the same as the width of the base beneath us, 22.5 inches. The depth of this table, again, this is all variable stuff. I was trying to figure it out based on how far my feet would go, depending on where the seat is situated. So if I keep it within the general area here, I'm at 21.5 inches at the bottom. Now it doesn't really, the fact that this top plate is adjustable, that does change a lot of things in my book, because that lets me bring the wheel closer or further from my chest. And then the pedals, I can get closer or further from the pedals by moving the seat. So the measurements, to and from the seat are going to change unless you've got some adjustability there. I wanted to make sure I had enough room inside to move my legs around, which I have lots of room there. So I guess The top shelf section that I made is about 14 inches deep. The center of this shape is 21, and the top is about 19 3/4. I'm not sure what really else there is to tell you. Everything else is just custom. Everything here was custom. It was all just kind of a shot in the dark. The TV mount is the base of the TV. You can see it's a few inches above the height of my deck here. But it's all going to base on where you're sitting. It's going to depend on the height of your seat. If you're going to have any obstructions in the way. Like in this case here, I've got my speaker mounts. These are made out of EMT. Really, I have the pipe bender to bend this stuff. That's why I used it. You can use anything. You can just screw speakers to the side. I wanted something that was going to have a bit of a different look, so this is what I ended up with. Once my speakers are hung on here, they don't interfere with my line of sight of the screen. I did that on purpose, obviously. So when it comes to designing something for yourself, I actually made these out of cardboard first to have something physical to see how it was going to work for me. And I found that that was the best way to figure out exactly how I was going to do this. Because with cardboard, you know, you grab a pair of scissors and some tape and you can completely change it without, you know, too much work or money. When it came to the front section of the housing for what the wheel mounts to, I felt it needed more rigidity than just being screwed to the base here. So I added this flat plate at the back to help keep everything square. Obviously I screwed through the faceplate into this front panel. That gave me also a great location to mount the TV bracket. I just so happened to put them, intentionally I put it flush with the face of that base on the front, again, so I'd have more rigidity where the TV was anchored. It's really not, you know, anything special. This is just, it could be as simple as a square box, but you know, the shapes may make it complicated for some people to figure out exactly what's going on. You can see where I had to remove the shifter bracket just to get this through the door. So that literally screws onto the side here. That's the only piece of the puzzle that isn't really adjustable, unless you want to consider how close or far your seat is. So this is really the only fixed piece that I have, but I didn't really work on figuring out a way to have this part adjustable. I wanted to make sure that this was going to be particularly solid. So that's, again, it's made out of 3/4 inch MDF. Everything is glued and screwed together. It's a very solid piece. So it's, you know, that's kind of what I wanted to do with it. But, you know, you can come up with whatever you choose. If you wanted to, you could build yourself a console from the base upward and have your shifter mounted there. That way you've got nothing, you know, in the path of this direction. You could even put your shifter on the left-hand side, you know, if you're trying to simulate like a right-hand drive car, something like that. I'm going to make a sketch with some measurements on it, and I'll put a picture at the end of the video. So if anybody's really curious as to what type of measurements I've got for this, hopefully that'll help clear things up. And if anyone ever wanted to try to build one of theirs, one of their own, and if they have any questions, feel free to give a shout. It's a fun project, and it is a lot of fun to use once it's completed and finished. My biggest goal was to have something that could sit out and wouldn't be so much of an eyesore that you'd be worried and have to hide it away. I wanted to be able to leave this out somewhere and not have it look completely disgusting. So that's why I chose to finish it with carpet and to paint it. Of course, these are things you don't have to do. If you've got a place where you can hide this thing and you're not worried about people seeing it, leave it raw. You know, don't paint it, don't put carpet on it. Don't use a car seat. Use a chair from your dining room set, you know, whatever you got. But I did have a lot of fun making this project, and hopefully some people can post some videos of the projects of their own.